Hey guys, it's Sarah with Ampersand Unique Gifts and Home Decor. And here today I'm showing you supplies that we put together. We're going to make a rag garland. Does anybody have scissors that they mark fabric only and then they pretty much threaten to cut anybody's fingers off that use it for anything other than fabric? Okay, just me. So what I have here is a stack of shirts. Some of them were mine, some of them were my daughter's, and some of them actually came from a couple different thrift stores, Goodwill and Salvation Army, I think. And what I'm doing here is taking an old t-shirt that is mine and pulling it into strips. And the t-shirt is it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. It doesn't pull, it wants to roll up, and it makes tiny little strips. I did keep them because my goal, of course, was to have lots of different textures and colors in my garland. I go through a process with each one where I cut out the seams because you don't want to try to use the seams in your garland because it's harder to tie, it's thicker. So I don't ever include those. I cut those out first. So you can see here I get it started and then I pull and rip it, and I'm just using the one side at this point and figure out that it would be a lot easier if I would cut it and be able to pull all the way through the one side. But like I said, this t-shirt ended up being harder to pull. It was quite a workout there. So I only used half of the t-shirt and set the rest aside. We're going to be having a girls' night out where we're going to be making these garlands. And I wanted to have one made already to give an idea and for people to get the full picture and understand what we were doing. We're making wreaths, and then we've got some other items that we can add and put in there. So I'm just making a straight garland, and we'll use it and have it displayed for girls' night out this Friday. So I always cut out the part with the buttons. Anybody that has seen any of my organization videos, I've got some of those posted. I have a thing for buttons, and don't waste buttons. So this ended up being a lot easier to tear. It was actually really rewarding to be able to just rip those apart. So like the other, I cut a bunch of different starts, and then I pick up the piece and I just pull them all apart. Gather my pieces, set them aside. I'm draping them over the back of a chair there. With these, I did save the part with the pocket. So I only cut to where the pocket was and saved enough there. I make organizational things that hang on the wall or aprons with different pockets. So I like to save the pockets from things that are already there and attach them to some other craft projects that I work on. So I went through and I tried to use as much of each shirt that I wasn't saving for something else to add here so that I had lots of different ones to choose from when making my garland. I wanted it to be very full. So I did go ahead and cut them up and then set the other pieces aside. But just because I didn't use part of it doesn't mean that it goes in the trash, because I don't like to get rid of fabric that I can use for something. Some of these would be perfect for different quilting pieces, or even just filling in different things where I needed to put a patch on something. So, I go through and I do the same process with each one. Cut off where the buttons are, decide where I'm going to cut. If it has pockets, save that, and work my way through it and cut it. Everything ripped really well with the exception of the t-shirt, and then there was a pink kind of heathery sweatshirt that had the same problem, any of those cotton things that were made like that. This shirt had a wide enough arm that it gave me value to actually use the arms after I cut the hard stitching sides off. So I did use all of this shirt. That was wonderful. The one thing that I did discover as far as the way this is, it has a section, it has like top stitching. I don't know if you can see the white kind of stitching through where that pink is. That gives you, what was happening there is when I pulled it one way, it wanted to pull and gather But if I ripped it the other way along there, then I didn't have that bunching up like it did. So I discovered it was easier to pull one way than the other. And that's going to be the case on a lot of fabrics. You want to figure out which way the bias is and how, because that'll help you to determine which way to pull your strips. Kind of like if you go to rip a piece of paper, it's always going to rip better one way than the other. So I've cut them all up. I've got my bundle. And this is what I will begin to tie on my Dollar Tree rope. I did pick a big rope. A lot of people use a thinner twine or a piece of yarn or even a wire. You can stretch out a wire coat hanger. But I like to use this for different crafts because it is thick. It's a good thickness there to hold that. I double tied them all on there. And I make mine really full. And I put them right up next to each other so that you can't see any of the rope. It just gives it a good sturdy base. I'm not using any kind of pattern, so it's not a matter of, pick one of these, then one of these, then one of these, and then repeat. I just wanted to grab them randomly. I want them to all just be on there with no rhyme or reason so that it's just all those pretty colors. I don't trim them all the same length. I also like to leave that kind of crazy. But if you have one that sticks way out, I've got some of those, that heathery pink from that sweatshirt. And then there's also some pink and white gingham in there that had some really long pieces. Here's one where it was really short. It was a child's corduroy shirt. Absolutely loved the pattern. I wanted it in there. It was kind of a little bit more of a burgundy, but I cut my pieces too short. I just used the front of it under the pockets, and it wasn't very long. So that one I did only tie on there once, but I made sure that whatever went next went right up to it and held it in there tightly so that it wouldn't come loose. I didn't have to worry about it coming off. So you kind of get the idea. Went through the whole rope. Here's kind of a snapshot where you can see I'm about halfway finished. I pull them down so that they will all hang down. So after I tie them, I'll put a couple on there, and then I'll make sure that it pulls down so that they all hang the same direction. I'm not gonna lie, this actually took me a couple hours. I watched an old Paul Newman Western while I did this, and maybe it wouldn't have taken me as long if I hadn't been watching TV. But I just kind of tied them on there and kept going while I watched my Western. And then it was just right about the time it was finished was when I was finished, so it was perfect. There's the pink and white gingham. That piece of fabric, in the picture in the beginning, that piece of fabric actually is there where it was a remnant that I bought. And I must have been going to do something with it, but it was just a little remnant that I paid $1 for. So I threw that in there, even though it wasn't necessarily a recycled item. I threw that in there because it was the perfect color and texture pattern to be able to use here. But I really liked that I was using repurposed shirts and not getting new fabric. You see these for sale on some of the craft sites where they've made them, and they have used new Valentine fabric with hearts and different things that you can get. But I just wanted to use items that already existed and not use new fabric. I know that some of these shirts could have potentially have been used by somebody else, and I do donate a lot of things. So I hope I'm not hurting anybody's feelings by cutting these up. I just wanted to use what we had and be able to come out with the same output. So here I'm actually making a tassel from an embroidery thread set that Denise Parks showed this on one of her lives. And you just take it, you fold it in half, cut off a little piece, and use that to tie. And no matter how many times I thought that I had it perfectly in the middle, it still ended up not being folded exactly in the middle, but you can see I adjust for that later when I cut it. But you just tie that around. That will then become what you're going to hang your tassel with. So I usually leave the paper tied around it. I pulled that one off so that I could get a piece of string to create the little head part of the tassel. But it's nice to leave those on because then you're not fighting with all the loose folds and strings there. But you tie that around, and then that becomes the little head. I actually make tassels, and out of yarn, you can they look like little dancers, so they make the perfect little dancers for different Christmas things, and you may have seen Christmas ornaments made that way. But then you just snip off the extra, then pull off the other piece of paper. And I do go ahead and cut the middle there part, where it's folded, before I realized that it was totally not even. So I didn't necessarily need to do that part because I'm going to cut them all here. And on the other ones, I didn't even try to cut it that way. I just went ahead and did this to ensure that all the strings were the same length. And then I'll kind of rough it up a little bit to get rid of the separation where the two pieces were. And voila, there you have your tassel. So I go ahead and I make 4 of these, and I put 2 on each end. I wouldn't necessarily, I don't think I would do it again, just because when I went to hang it, you really couldn't see them. It didn't really add much to it, but it was good experience for me just to make the tassels, and the cat thought that I was making her some toys. She was pretty certain that I was on the table making cat toys. You can get embroidery thread for pretty cheap. I did get this. You can get it at the dollar store. I think it's 4, so it comes out about 25 cents a piece when you think about this. But like the other day at the Goodwill, in their grab bag section, I bought for $1.99 an entire gallon size Ziploc bag full of embroidery thread. So, I don't know, there were probably 50 things of them in there. So when you think about that, you can get them for a lot cheaper. If you just look around, yard sales, sometimes kids get things and start thinking they're going to make crafts, friendship bracelets, etc. And next thing you know, it ends up at the yard sale. So I always look for those kind of things. So you could actually do this for a lot cheaper, but if you just needed it for a project or two, you can get these, I think, at the Dollar Tree. It's where I saw you could get a pack of, I think it was pink and red, and you could use those. So again, probably not going to do that on the next garland, just because, it seemed like it was cute to do it there, but when I tried to hang it, it really didn't add much. It was kind of just busy and didn't stand out enough, but they are cute little tassels. So there you go. Again, make the 2 for the side. But here we are. I have finished it. It is longer than my arms, so it's about 6 feet total. And it was really easy. It was fun, and I absolutely love the way it looks. It is hanging up on my front window.